started. So, welcome to our third quarter 59-minute meeting. My name is Cameron James. I'm the Director of Government Affairs here at BRR. And today we're going to hear from Ada County Highway District Commissioner for District 5, David McKinney. He's going to go through some of the projects that ACHD is working on, as well as some of the stuff for the integrated work plan. And we will have about 20 or so minutes at the end, maybe more for Q&A. And then we'll wrap up at about 11:29 to get everybody out of here on time. So with that, I'll turn it over to Commissioner McKinney.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about ACHD and the things we're doing. And if the stuff I'm going through is too much review and too much, ask questions, and I'll be happy to move along to the things you're interested in most. First of all, the Ada County Highway District was established in 1971 by the state legislature, passed a bill that allows special governance entities, and we are the nation's only countywide highway district. There have been others along the way that have come and gone, and people often ask me why, and I don't know for certain, but I think it's political primarily, because how many county commissioners and city council members and mayors don't want to have control of their roads and the money that goes with it. I suspect that's the primary reason why it's hard to keep a countywide highway district. But there are efficiencies of scale that gives us. We have all the resources for the highways, so not only can we do a uniform job of building things around the county so that things don't change from district to district, likewise, we can amass larger amounts for the bigger projects more easily than, say, the city of Star. If they had only their portion of the resources for highways, it would take them forever to get enough money to do a large project, for example, like a new bridge over the Boise River or something like that. So I believe that ACHD is a great entity and we ought to maintain it. We ought to keep it. And I hope the voices that are critical of ACHD, you will put that in perspective, because this entity ought to continue doing what it does. Good. Ada County, we handle all the local roads, bridges, streets, alleys, and so on in the county. So we have about 1,055 square miles, more than 500,000 residents here, and 6 incorporated cities. And of course, we handle the unincorporated areas of the county as well. There's over $4 billion worth of assets that ACHD manages. That includes 5,400 lane miles of road. That's enough lane miles to build a 2-lane road from here to Orlando, Florida. So that's the quantity of streets that we have. We have 460 signalized intersections, 3,000 miles of sidewalks, and then all the facilities, the fleet, the heavy equipment for maintaining, and so on, all of that. One thing that's interesting, the intersections, even on the state highways in the county, state and federal highways, we control and manage all the intersections, all the signal timing, and so on. So if you have concerns about signal timing at any intersection, ACHD is the place you can call. And the district is overseen by a commission of 5 members. I'm one of those 5. 3 of us are up for re-election this year. Here are the districts, geographic districts. I'm District 5 over there on the left. My district is basically from Screeway to the river and from Eagle Road to the county line. And you can see the other districts there. Jim Hansen, Jim Hansen is stepping down this year. This is the end of his 3rd term on the commission. And so his district is an open seat at this point. 2 people running. Alexis Pickering is also up for re-election in District 2, and she does have an opponent there. I'm running for re-election this year as well. Those 3 districts are up for re-election. I'm running unopposed. So thank you for your vote. I appreciate it very much. And this is the executive team at the Highway District. Ryan Head is the director of the district. He recently replaced Bruce Wong, who had been the director for about 13 years and retired in June. Now, and 460 employees. And that includes, maintenance people, designers, traffic experts, traffic engineers, just the whole range of people that do the work to recently adopted our fiscal year 2025 budget, $234 million. About 40% of that comes from property taxes, and that property tax chunk is the only chunk that we as a commission have any control over. The rest of it comes from the Highway Users Fund and other sources that we don't have any control over. We just get what we get from the state, from those various sources. But the property tax portion of it, about 40-ish%, we can decide here whether to take an increase or not, and how much of an increase to take, and so on. This year, for the first time since I've been on the commission voted to actually increase our property tax certification. So it's the first time in 4 years. But what's interesting is that if you look at the numbers, the average ACHD portion of your property tax bill is actually still less than it was 4 years ago. And I'm not saying with inflation, you're still paying less on your property tax bill for ACHD stuff than you were 4 years ago. And so we felt like we had to make an increase in our property tax certification because in the combination of things, especially with inflation, our revenue is tight, okay? Because the cost of things always goes up and our revenue hasn't been going up for several years. And COVID made a difference as well, primarily with inflation. So let me show you something about the budget here. This shows the total budget, $234 million. You can see about half of it is capital projects, and I'll go into that more specifically. These on the right, these pie pieces on the right mostly are what we call operations. And those are the sorts of things that just come along no matter what you do. The capital projects and capital facilities are budgets that we work on and consider what we're going to build and where and when and so on. That capital facilities budget is an important one, and I'm going to talk about those two in particular in the next two slides. This slide, I apologize, I had to scan it from some paperwork that I had, but this is our capital facilities budget. Right now, we are in the process of building several new facilities that have been needed for a long time to allow us to do our job for the next 50, 80 years. These include some new maintenance facilities, a new traffic operations center, and we've also moved to a new headquarters building, and I'll be talking a little bit more about that. Excuse me. So for the next few years, these capital facilities, which aren't roads, right? They're stuff, they're the maintenance yards, they're the things that allow us to do the roads. We're building these for the next few years. $20 to $30 million a year out of our budget is going to these, which would otherwise presumably go into roads. But it'll allow us to do what we need to do better. We're building a new traffic operations center on Franklin Road. That's in the upper right-hand quadrant there. That is under construction now and will be complete probably around March next year. Apple maintenance facility, the bottom portion there, that's a new maintenance yard that we're starting to build out off of Federal Way. You're not far from the airport. And the Meeker remodel. Meeker is the location for the new headquarters building for ACHD. And I'll just explain this right now. The headquarters for ACHD is down on Adams Street in Garden City. Right across the street from it is a maintenance yard. These were original facilities. When the Ada County Highway District started in 1971, this is what it had. That was its facilities. So a lot of those maintenance facilities, well, the maintenance facilities aren't very up to, they're old, okay? They've really been used for much more than 50 years. And the headquarters building, which has been expanded multiple times, is old. And it turns out when we looked into the cost of remodeling or expanding our existing building, we're looking at $40 to $60 million minimum to do what we needed to do to have the facilities for the next 50 years. Instead, we found a new building that we could buy that's more than 2.5 times the size of our current location. The cost was under $20 million. So for a little over $20 million, we've got a new headquarters building that's currently being remodeled and so on, and we'll be moving into that over the next year. All right. And this is the capital project. You saw, as you recall back on this, that's lower left-hand part, 49%. That's what this shows right here. And I've put in parentheses the individual numbers and the basic purpose for each of those pie sections. Capital maintenance problem, with maintenance, let me explain something. This is kind of confusing. It confused me at first. The capital maintenance here, this is maintenance that's done by outside contractors. If we go back 2 slides, you'll see there's also a maintenance chunk, 16%. That's the maintenance that is done by our in-house people. So employees who work for ACHD with our own big dump trucks and what have you, and our chip seal people, that's all here. This here, that is capital maintenance. So you can see there's a lot of money that goes into maintenance. These 5,400 miles of roadways are a huge, huge cost to maintain, but if we don't maintain them, it costs even more to rebuild. So it's absolutely essential. Maintenance takes so much of that. Now, we'll talk more about this later, but of course we've got our bridge program, we've got our capital investment, which is roads and intersections, which is the primary thing that we do. And then you've got this community programs wedge and our traffic safety program, and I'll talk a little bit more about those in a few minutes. The motto of our leader, our director at ACHD, building safe, we're building together, and we're building more. That's kind of the plan that he's got in place. So let's talk about building together. I talked about these different facilities. Here, this is a collage. You can see on the top is a picture of the Franklin Traffic Operations Center, which is currently under construction. In the middle is the new headquarters building on Meeker, which is over by the HP campus, where the state has their facilities just off of Chinden and Cloverdale, in that vicinity. And at the bottom is a rendering of the new maintenance facility on Apple. Let me show you where these things all are. Let's see. There we go. In green, those are our current facilities. Our headquarters and Adams Maintenance Yard are down there in Garden City on the upper right. That's where we have our old headquarters building and the Adams Yard. The Traffic Operations Center, TOC, is currently in a leased space on Orchard near the connector. And then on the left, you have the Cloverdale Maintenance Yard. Cloverdale Maintenance Yard was built in the 1980s, so it's been there for quite a while. And that's something, there are some additional ongoing improvements and such that happened there. Those are our current facilities. Traffic Operations Center is in space that is leased because it had to be. Years ago, we outgrew the headquarters building. So Traffic Operations Center, as well as the Development and Technical Services, they're in this leased space over on Orchard. The lease is about close to $1 million a year. So that's why new headquarters there on Meeker, that's on the top there. When we found this new headquarters building, it allows us, in combination with building the new Traffic Operations Center there on on Franklin, just west of Cloverdale. That's on the bottom there. Now the Traffic Operations Center, we can get rid of that $1 million a year lease and move into the new space there. The Development Technical Services and other employees that were also at that Orchard location and move into the new headquarters. And that's all underway now. And likewise, we've got 2 new maintenance facilities that are in process. One out on Apple on the lower right, which is off Federal Way. All of the maintenance from Adams Yard is going to go there. And the Ustick one, that's going to be a few years off, but we have property out on Ustick Road. So we'll end up with 3 maintenance yards, one on Apple, one on Cloverdale, one on Ustick, that are nicely spaced throughout the county, which will allow us to be more responsive and to take care of the projects that are needed in the different parts of the county. Now, and what they've done recently, and this is very smart, I was an advocate of this, they've sped up the timeline because you see that $ down there at the bottom. It's estimated that the 11 acres or so that we have on the river down there at Adams Street in Garden City, part of the reason we're leaving there is not just because the facilities are old and difficult to improve, but also because there's been some conflict with Garden City. And I'm not going to go too much into that, but Garden City is hoping that they could redevelop this 11 acres of riverfront property. So we expect that when we sell that Adams headquarters location, the estimates are $25 to $35 million in value to sell that real estate. redeveloped. And that money will allow us to be able to go back into all of these additional facilities we're building. So that's that 30 million a year that we're spending. We can perhaps recoup 30 million of that in one fell swoop when we sell the Adams Yard. So we're moving quickly to get the Apple facility built so the Adams Yard can move there, and to get the headquarters building completely ready to inhabit, and then the Adams property will be able to sell. So I'm not going to go through all the details of this, but we're moving forward, and once we get that Adams property sold, then we go full bore with getting the Houston Maintenance Yard built as well. By 2029, 2030, probably, we'll have these new facilities that will put the district in great shape for the next 50 years. Now, so that's build together. This is build safe. And when it comes to highways, of course, safety is baked into everything we do. It has to be, right? We have to build and maintain a highway system that is safe. But the challenge with that is that safety is a bottomless demand. If you think about it, there's no end to what you could do to make highways more safe, because it is literally impossible to make a highway that is completely safe. That's one of the challenges of this situation. Here's a list of all sorts of things we've done with respect to school zones, sidewalks, filling sidewalk gaps, and these things are ongoing. When it comes to safety, here's the way I put it. We have to meet an obligation of building things that are safe. And when we become aware of specific safety issues, we have to take care of them promptly. The district is doing that. In fact, the district is going above and beyond that, because we also have that additional, you saw that wedge in the pie chart a minute ago for the safety programs. We're doing a number of additional safety programs that go beyond just the usual, looking at intersections and roadways and asking the question, what more can we do here? And the truth is, there are always answers to that. It's very easy to come up with new things we can do. Safe. Excuse me. But we have to balance that with the need to build new facilities. Excuse me. We have to balance that with the need for traffic efficiency and so on. So that's why, you know, my objective at ACHD is to, as much as we can, focus on our core mission, which is building and maintaining highways. Now, let's talk about building more, because that's what I hope to do, is build more. Here are some major projects that are part of our integrated 5-year work plan. Excuse me, I apologize, I got a frog in my throat. Several of these are in process right now. Others are upcoming over the next year, and others are over the next 5 years. And we're right in the process of evaluating all these projects. And we welcome your input, the input of the general public on these. Will be the decision hearing on our integrated 5-year work plan for 2025 is coming up on September 25th. That's an evening meeting at the ACHD headquarters, 6 p.m. And we would welcome as many as possible who want to attend. And you can look online at all of these things in preparation to see what's on the plan and to give us your input on that. Here are just a few that I will mention specifically. State Street, 4th Street to 8th is under construction right now. This was originally part of a larger plan, rebuilt from 4th to 14th. That project was put out to bid in 2022. Low bid came back about double what our engineer's estimate was and double what was in the budget. And so we kind of choked on that number and said, okay, we gotta refigure things. This may not work. So we pulled it back. That was August of 22. We talked with contractors, we talked with engineers and so on to look for, are there some structural things like project phasing or what have you that we could change with this project that could bring its price down significantly. And at the same time, we were looking at the budget to see how we could rearrange things to fit it in. Put it back out for bid in late 2022. The bids came back in January of 23, about the same number. Okay. So it was like about 16 million. They came back at 15.4 million in the end. At that point, in my mind, and now this is where, this is my opinion as a commissioner, a rational person would say, that's about as good as it's going to get, right? We've bid it twice, bids have all come back, and it's not the same contractor that got the low bid the second time, right? So the bids came back the second time, about the same price, but at that point, the commission composition had changed. And what happened is the majority of the commission, not including me, voted to take back the bid again and say, oh no, we need to redesign this project because there's not enough attention being paid to bicyclists and pedestrians. And I said, well, wait a second. This is State Street. It's a major arterial for motor vehicles. That's its purpose. 18,000 vehicles a day into and out of the downtown core. And they said, no, no, no. They're going to build a YMCA nearby. We've got all these pedestrian concerns and bicyclist concerns. And so the commission, unwisely in my view, pulled it back and split it up. They took this 4th to 8th section and said, let's build that as we previously planned. So this is a rebuild of what was there before. Okay? And that was actually the intent with the whole thing. But as you'll see in a minute, the 8th to 14th section, they have decided to redo in a different way. We'll get to that in a minute. Here's a project. I'm going to keep you on pins and needles for that one. Here's a project that just recently went out to bid and it's starting construction. Eagle and Amity. The Eagle and Amity intersection, along with a 1 mile stretch of Eagle Road, are being rebuilt. This is a $19 million project. Huge money because the amount of earthwork involved is huge. They're having to build some great big retaining walls because if you go out in that area, if you're familiar with that area, there are some big elevation changes in the roadways. So to meet that, to manage that, it's being rebuilt and it's a big project. But here's an interesting thing about this project. We put it out to bid a year ago. The low bid came back about 22 million, which again, we looked at that number and went, holy cow. But shortly after the bids were opened, one of the unsuccessful bidders lodged a protest that the winning bidder had not met the legal requirement that their bonding agency be licensed in the state of Idaho. And when that was reviewed by the legal people and so on, they concluded, yes, that's correct. Their bid actually has to be thrown out. So it had to be thrown out. A year later, here we bid it again. The price came back $3 million cheaper. So that actually was a good thing. Where there was a 1 year delay, not good. $3 million savings, good. So here we are. So it's going forward, and that's going to be a project. It'll take about 2 years for this project to get done. State Highway 16. You're aware of 16 being extended from Chinden down to the freeway. This is a state highway, but of course we have to build connections at Franklin Road, Ustick Road, and McMillan, all of the cross streets where we have jurisdiction. There are significant expenses to build all the connecting ramps and so on. The state is actually building the ramps, but we have intersections and we have connections in there. That's a significant cost. Ustick Road is one of the major ones. We're getting started there because not only do we not have this infrastructure out there, we're several miles away from out there. Ustick Road goes back to a 2-lane road starting at 10-mile road. So we've got several miles for Franklin Road and Ustick Road and McMillan to widen, expand, and connect in. We got some money from the state for this, which is good. It's not enough. So in any case, we're programming these projects. They're coming up right away. We're widening 3 intersections, widening 5 miles of Ustick Road, and we're working with the city of Nampa because, of course, out there, right adjacent to Highway 16 is where the county line is. New overpass, Linder Road going over the interstate. This is a big project. The city of Meridian has been very anxiously involved in getting this project and promoting this, and I'm absolutely on the bandwagon. This will be a great thing. It's in design right now, and we're expecting construction in 2026. The state ACHD is going to pay for building the bridge, and we have to do everything else to connect from Franklin Road south to Overland Road. But here's the great thing about this. If you look at the county from Eagle Road to Highway 16, there's not a single arterial that goes all the way from the North Bench all the way down to the south end of the county. Linder Road is the only one. And so once it's built, it'll go all the way from the North Bench all the way down to Cuna. And it's going to be a major thoroughfare simply because it has that long connection of status. 5 Mile Overpass, this is a state project. This is a bridge that was built in 1965, and the state identified it as a bridge that needs to be replaced. But of course, Cole Road is 5 Mile Road is a county road. And so the state is, again, doing the bridge, and we're doing everything else connected with it. That project has been pushed a little bit in favor of the Linder overpass, because the state has recognized what I believe is absolutely true, that a place where we don't have anything at all is a higher priority than a place where we have something, but it's not quite what we want. Okay, so we've got this older bridge. They're going to widen it. They're going to replace it, but it's been pushed a little bit down the list compared to the Linder overpass. Yes, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Is there ever been talk about an actual on-ramp there at 5 Mile?
No. And that is because
the homes there.
Well, yeah, if you go look at Google Maps and look at an aerial view of that 5 Mile Road area, and you'll see that it's very choked, fully developed. The cost would be astronomical to acquire all the land to build. Plus, here's the other thing. On an interstate highway, and of course that would be it's a federal facility, right. So the feds would be involved. You don't want interchanges any closer than 2 miles. But you've also got the fact that 5 Mile is very close to the Flying Y. So you've got a major interchange as well. And so it's not going to happen. So, yes.
I have a question on that overpass as well.
Sure.
Back to the 5 Mile.
Okay.
So on those bridges, when you do that, you're going to widen them. For instance, to the west of the bridge, there's a private road, and then there's people's land there. Mm-hmm. Is that going to cantilever over so that they can still use that private road for access to all those properties that in Brook Hollow subdivision? Or do you take that private road away from them?
Here's what's likely to happen. And of course, I don't have the design in front of me because the design hasn't been done yet. If you drive the 5 Mile overpass right now, you'll see that the road jogs to one side. Here's what will probably happen. And I guess I should have said this at the beginning. My background, I'm a highway engineer and an attorney. And so I used to be involved in designing ACHD projects back in the 90s before I went to law school. When you build a bridge, in many cases, you can keep an existing bridge open and in service if you build a new one alongside it. I think there's a good chance they'll start the bridge beside the current one, and then tear out the current one and attach a new section to widen it. But in a situation like you mentioned, they acquire the property. Basically, you've got the constitutional requirement that the private property cannot be taken for public purposes without paying just compensation. That's the takings clause of the Constitution. And we have to necessarily take property frequently. For every project that we do, we figure out what needs to be done. So long as we can justify it as a public necessity, we're allowed to, through eminent domain, to take property and negotiate with the property owners a fair price for not only the property itself, but also for any damages that we cause to them, financial damages as a result of taking the property. And then many times, we're left with a parcel that's left over. We sell off what remains because a lot of times the original owners don't want to keep anything. So we buy a portion of it, and we sell off what remains, and maybe it gets redeveloped as commercial or something like that. That's very common with that. Yes.
Private road, I believe she's talking about, though, is access for the irrigation company's main diverters and pumps.
Okay.
So who's going to win? You or the irrigation companies on that?
Well, that does complicate.
Because I hear they have a little bit of power around here.
They do. Actually, here's something to understand about Idaho. The irrigation companies and the railroad predate statehood. So they have superior rights. They have superior rights to the state when it comes to land. And I dealt with this as an engineer. We had irrigation companies. they have to sign off on whatever happens. And the same is true with the railroad where it's involved. So yeah, so the state and ACHD will have to negotiate with the irrigation companies to deal with that. But they will also recognize, we still have the right of eminent domain, and we can still, we have to work with them. We always work it out. It's sometimes expensive, but facilities, sometimes have to be moved. That's just the way it works. Yes?
For the eminent domain on Linder, how much heads up do you give the landowners?
As much as we possibly can. So what happens is during the design process, once we've finalized the concept design, so we're concept design stage, then we can map out what property is needed. There has to be at least a preliminary engineering design to know how far the embankments are going to go, where this structure needs to be, and so on. Once we know what property is needed, then we talk to the property owners. Sometimes we talk to them way ahead of time. Let me give you another example. This isn't in the slideshow, but Linder Road between Cherry Lane and Eustick, driven that, it gets very narrow with a whole bunch of front-on houses with driveways out onto Linder Road. Whoever approved that, I do not know. They were the same, okay? So we've got an arterial highway with about 20 homes that have their driveways right out onto it. And at one place, it's a bunch of duplexes, and so the driveways are very close together. Okay, we're gonna have to go through, probably spend $18 million to buy a property through there. Because the concept, we're still a concept design, we've already talked to all the property owners preliminarily to say, okay, here are the three concepts we're looking at. Here's what the different impacts would be on your property. What are your preferences? About half of them had already said, yeah, we'd like to sell. We'd like you to just buy our property outright. And the other half haven't necessarily given a preference. And most of the time, it's very rare that we end up in court over an eminent domain case. Most of the time, we negotiate it, we come up with come to agreement on the numbers, and then we buy the property and everything is taken care of. If we have to go to court, we consider that. So we'd like to make it as reasonable and less inexpensive as possible. Excuse me. Is there another question? Okay.
So I'd like to follow. Give you best practice recommendations for us.
Well, let me see. I know one thing. Most of the time, if lawyers get involved, that's bad for everyone. It makes it more costly and more difficult for everyone. And I say that as a lawyer, because I know lawyers can screw things up, okay? Or at least lawyers can make things expensive. At the same time, your property owner, the best thing, probably the best thing you can say is make sure you get a good appraisal. If you have a good appraisal or more than one appraisal, we have to get our own appraisal as well. So then we come together and it's a battle of the appraisals. And most of the time, one is here and one is here and we meet in the middle somewhere. That's the most common thing. But having a good appraisal is a good place to start instead of one that's a little bit, because all appraisals are not created equal. You know that. That helped? Okay. So let's see. State Street and Pierce Park intersection. This one is going to be constructed this year, fiscal year 25, which starts October 1. So this will improve the intersection and realign Pierce Park. All right, here we go. Back to State Street, 14. After the second bidding of this State Street project, and after the commission, unwisely in my view, pulled it back and said we're going to split it up, 8th to 14th, they came back with new concept proposals. We had a concept hearing back in June, and the concept that was approved by the majority of the commission was to take this section of State Street that has 2 travel lanes in each direction with a center turn lane in parts of it, so it's a 4 or 5 lane section. They voted to change it to 1 lane in each direction to get rid of half the capacity of the highway in favor of wide shared use pathways for bicyclists and pedestrians. So they're taking a major arterial and cutting its vehicular capacity in half. And no matter how much I screamed and shouted, they said, oh yeah, we're going to do this because being good to bicyclists and pedestrians, it just feels so good. It's virtue signaling. There are many places where this is appropriate. This is not one of them. I don't. That's my opinion. But in any case, this is in design. If the makeup of the commission changes following this election, and I hope that it does, if the makeup of the commission changes in January, I will work to undo it. That's my promise to you and promise to everyone. But at the moment, my hands are tied because 3 of the 5 commissioners voted for this. Question over here?
So I live fairly close to that. So at 8th Street, it goes down to a 2-lane anyways, right?
It does.
And I'm a major avid biker, but I still think this is stupid. But at the end of the day, you're really just reducing that by 4 blocks. It just popped in my head because at the end, unless you're going to widen 8th to 1st, then why not have them 4 blocks sooner? It doesn't really matter because
Right.
you're going down from 2 lanes to 1 lane anyways. So why not?
At 8th Street,
But the other thing right between this is also going to put the new Y, so low income housing, at least on 1, not if on, maybe on 2 lots. And then what are they going to put on the old YMCA? Is it going to go to the school or is it going to be another low income housing project?
That I don't know. One of the important things about ACHD to understand is that we are not a land use agency. We can't make any land use decisions. That's planning and zoning, that's city council, that's other people. We have to work with what is. And here's the thing about this area with regard to bicycle and pedestrian use. Jefferson and Bannock, which run parallel to State Street, are already designated bikeways.
I agree.
So taking State Street, which is intended for vehicular traffic, and trying to convert it to a bike and ped zone is a lot of money for not much benefit. In fact, the consultant who did the sort of concept design and so on that's been involved in this project admitted that this will increase congestion. This will increase delay. And I stood up and I said, look, I cannot vote for any highway project that we know will increase delay. It just doesn't make sense.
Well, it's going to make it even worse when they put that low income housing right there next to the Y, because both of those are going to be very, very high traffic. And so you're reducing the exact blocks where traffic's going to increase significantly in the next 2 years or 3 years.
And you know, here's an interesting thing to think about as well. This is something they didn't address. I heard one of these kind of, I don't know, brain teaser question things a while ago. And the question was this: what travels at a speed of 12 miles an hour opposite the direction of traffic? The answer is
Bicycle.
no, a traffic jam. Oh. If you look at a traffic model that shows things moving, when a traffic jam starts, it ripples upward through the stream of traffic, and it moves at about 12 miles an hour. The additional delay that this constriction will cause will ripple up State Street every morning during the AM peak.
It already does.
And so, right, it already does. This will make it worse. And I can't vote for something that will make it worse. That's why.
I just had a question about the different areas that you guys are elected in. Is there any significance in that? You know, because obviously this is a project outside of your district, so I'm just curious, what does that weigh in?
And that has to do with the political makeup of the commission. You've got people in the north end of Boise and the east, Barber Park, that area. Political makeup of the people in those communities is a little different. I'm from Northwest Meridian, very, very conservative.
You don't care about bikes. Just kidding.
Well, I look at it this way. Number one, building and maintaining highways is our core mission. Number two, even if bicycle use for transportation as opposed to just recreation, if that went up by a factor of 10 or 100, it would still make no dent in traffic congestion in the county. The economy, the lifeblood of our county depends upon the ability of people to get around in motor vehicles, cars, trucks, everything, right? If that is allowed to suffer in favor of, and pardon my expression, but in favor of pursuing a bicycle utopia, that's a problem. That harms everyone. good of the people, and surveys show, random samples that we've done, where do you put these different priorities? People put roadways up here, they put bike and pedestrian facilities down here, bottom of the list. You know, in a top 10 or top 15 or something, roadways is number 1, and bike and ped is like number 10.
But there's no significance in terms of where the project is, and you being a commissioner, the votes are all the same. There's no significance there. Just
Well,
who you represent is what.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So it's kind of like, you know, it's kind of like Congress. You have the different Congress members from all over the country. They represent people with different views, but they all vote on the same stuff. So, yes.
But whoever's district this is in, are they in favor of this?
Yes. This,
That's a good question.
I would have to go back to that beginning slide, and then maybe I can do it quickly enough.
Who are you trying to get voted out?
You're an orange endorsements already.
Did you say that would be you?
No.
Oh, I was like, oh, shit. Okay.
There we go. So do you want to hear my views? Now, these are my personal political views relative to this election. I'm running for re-election. I'm very much, admittedly, on the conservative side. I'm in favor of focusing on roads primarily. Doing these other things, they have their place. Right now, they've gone a little over as far as I'm concerned. Alexis Pickering is very much in favor of the bicycle and pedestrian lobbyists in their views. She pushes that very. She's running against Rebecca Arnold, who used to be on the commission. Rebecca Arnold in the previous election lost by 2 votes to Alexis Pickering. So this is a rematch. Let me say this: Rebecca Arnold is a what's the right word? She's a powerhouse, a firebrand. She's a really county assessor, and she did all the legal research to discover that she could do both. She could be county assessor and serve on the 8th County Highway District at the same time. So she's running for her old seat back. And she's a firebrand, but ideologically speaking, she and I are closer together. She's interested in, like what I say, focus on highways, focus on building the infrastructure that the majority of the people need 99% of the time. Miranda Gold is another commissioner who's kind of on the left side and goes for the bicycle and pedestrian stuff. Jim Hansen as well. Jim Hansen is very much on that side. His district is open. Miranda Gold's not up for re-election. She was elected 2 years ago. Jim Hansen's seat, his opponent is Antonio Bomarito. No, sorry, not his opponent. He is helping, he's the campaign manager for his sort of hand-picked successor, Patricia Nilsson. And so he's working with her. She's like him, ideologically speaking. Antonio Bomarito is more like him. And so that's where I would put my chips. But that's just my opinion.
And Antonio is a member of BRR.
Yes, he's a realtor. So, you know, he's not what's the word? He's not a highway expert. But then again, Miranda Gold, Alexis Pickering, Jim Hansen, they knew nothing about highways before they got on the commission. You learn as you go, and there's actually a program for getting education in highway stuff. They have the Road Master Program and the Road Scholar Program and the Road Master Program that Goldthorpe has taken, where he goes through like 80 hours of classroom work, learning about highways, pavement, snow plowing, salt, all the stuff that highway people have to know about. I spent 4 years studying civil engineering. I'm already there, but that program works. It's great for people who aren't experts in the area. Okay, I think I'm taking too long. Let me go a little faster. So let me get back to where I was. So this community programs, that number right there, I think should be about 1/2 to 1/3 of what it is. The number going toward bike and pedestrian. It should be a smaller part of our budget. And that's what I'm pushing for. Likewise, the traffic safety program includes what's called the Leading Pedestrian Indicator program, which it turns out is just changing the signal timing to let pedestrians start walking before people get the green light. It helps avoid those conflicts of people turning right, especially, but others as well. So pedestrians can be seen. Great idea. Trouble is, it turns out, according to what we've been told, that you can't implement that, can't implement that change in signal timing, which is pretty simple. We can do it remotely from our traffic operations center on all our intersections. No, no, no. You can't do that unless you also bring the intersection up to current code for ADA standards, Americans with Disabilities.
Who's saying that?
The federal government. And so what it turns out, something that we could do in 3 months for $100,000, the current plan is to do it over 10 years for $110 million. And that's something I say, hold on, that's too much. That's too much. If we can't do it, if we have to do it all or nothing, let's do nothing because we don't have that extra $110 million. Well, that's in that traffic safety program. And so, yes.
But you can do it on the intersections that already have it because it's on 11th and State right now.
Intersections that meet current standards
Right.
for ADA, you can do it. And that ends up, out of 460 intersections, I think we conclude there were like 60 or 80 of them that currently qualify. All the rest, you have to rebuild all those pedestrian facilities to make a signal timing change. Now, I have some, as a lawyer, I look at that and I say, hold on, I'm not sure that quite follows. So I'm in the process of getting some additional look at that. Because if we can do it just by changing signal timing, 3 months, 100 grand, done for the whole county. That's what I'm in favor of. But this 110 million, that yes.
When it comes to state streets, being in between portions right now between 4th and 8th, it seems like it's taking way longer. I walk through there 3 days a week and it seems like nobody's doing anything. Working, what things can you guys do to kind of ramp up or make it quicker? It seems like all those roads down in Boise and all the businesses that are kind of hurt.
Here's the thing about construction projects. You very frequently see a construction project and it looks like nothing is being done. And that's because there's something you can't see that's delaying everything else or that's in the way that they're having to work on. So I can't give you specifics on that, but that's what happens all of that. Could be utility work, underground utility work that has to happen before you can finish the curbs and the paving and so on. Lots of things like that happen. So to get the details, you'd have to talk to the project manager. But many people have made your same comment. I've asked about it and they've said, yeah, it's because there's this and this and this that are preventing this other work. They have to get done first and you don't see it. And that's why you don't see a lot of the other stuff going on. So that happens with construction. Yes.
Is there a place you can go to kind of get details?
There absolutely is. And I will give you all that information here in just a moment. Let me see if I can get back to where I was. Let's see. So we were ACHD project, State Street. All right. Let me just say one thing though about this State Street project to wrap this up. The original plan had been executed. It would have built the whole project for about $16 million. Okay, from 4th to 14th with its current cross section. So current lane configuration and so on. But new stuff because what's out there is old and that's why it needs to be built. With this new stuff and the new changes, in the end, we'll be spending over $25 million for the same stretch of road. And as I said, we'll have half the capacity in that 4-block stretch. And cause delays that'll ripple upstream. So that's kind of the reality of the situation that I'm dealing with. Let's see that. Okay, so the 5-year work plan hearing is on September 25th. Please get involved. And all this information you've asked about, you can get at our website. If you go there, you can report issues, you can report potholes, you can look for road work, you can look for jobs, you can look at different projects. For example, a 5-year work plan has an integrated, or what's the right word, an interactive map where you can see all the different projects and you can get information on each one, where it stands in the plan, what plan year it's set for, and what it involves, whether it's an intersection or a roadway or both, or a bridge, or pedestrian and bicycle projects, and so on. So you can also go to a portion of the ACHD website that shows you current locations of road work. And that's a great thing. You can find out what's the status of the projects, the status updates, they could be, they're usually pretty close to up to date. though of course there's often a lag, as you can imagine. And then there are pages for specific projects where you get even more detailed information on those specific projects that are, and this is a screenshot from that page right now. So you can click on any of those and find out the current status of those projects. And then there's the Tell Us page, which allows you to report something. You see a sign down or something damaged or any kind of roadway issue, flooding, whatever, potholes, you name it. You can go on this Tell Us, you can type in your question, your issue, the location, and the staff is very good. Something like 88% of the time, you're able to resolve these Tell Us questions within 24 hours. They're always very reactive, and we've gotten a lot of good feedback and good response on the Tell Us system. And so there you are. There's all of our social media stuff, and there's a QR code. And now I'll be happy to take any additional questions. Yes.
Dave, can you walk through how the funding goes in line with the 5-year plan? So it's funded for 2 years, and then what happens after that? And then also, what other entities are involved in making those decisions? So you have the cities have a vote on certain things, the public does, and kind of walk through that process as well.
Yeah, in establishing the 5-year plan, first of all, we look at all the projects that are needed, and we prioritize them, and then we send out a preliminary 5-year work plan, and we get input from all of the cities, from the county, from ACHD, and from the public. And so we take all that input in and consider it. It's not that they're voting, it's just they're saying, here's what we would like. And then as a commission, we consider that input and make adjustments. What happens is this, here's our budget for next year, here's our plan. The ACHD staff takes the numbers, the money that we have, and the projects that we have, and the projections about how much this project will cost this year and how much next year. And they decide how much to allocate to each project in the next fiscal year. And then they project for the following fiscal year. And they always, make assumptions. And when construction projects happen, construction always costs more than what it's supposed to cost, right? Everything goes up most of the time. And so then we have to make adjustments. So we'll set our budget, and then we decide upon the 5-year work plan. That's why our budget hearing's in August. Our 5-year work plan is decided in September. And then throughout the following year, we have to make adjustments here and there. We'll make adjustments to the budget. We'll make adjustments to the 5-year work plan here and there. And then we come around the next year, we do it all again. And there are some projects that are on the plan, but their construction year is still undetermined. And you'll see that page that I showed you, the interactive page for the 5-year plan. You'll see some of them where the year is undecided or undetermined. That means it's out beyond 5 years and it hasn't been set yet, but it's on the horizon. Yes.
Do you ever incentivize your contractors to get done early?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I believe that every contract that we put out, most anyway, have clauses that give bonuses for early completion. It depends on the circumstance. There are some types of projects where early completion is considered highly, highly desirable. Other projects where, no, we've got this window. As long as we hit within this window, we're good. Beyond this window, there's just liquidated damages. So there's the carrot and the stick approach with contractors.
You can make a QR code.
What?
You can make a QR.
I can. There you go. So yes.
A quick question on the safety portion and sidewalks and bicycles.
Yeah.
So during the winter, when the snowplows come, they take that snow, put it up on the sidewalks and the bike paths so that it's not safe to walk or ride a bike or impossible. Then it's up to the citizens and the business owners to clear that sidewalk that the county's put in front of them?
Possibly. We have, ACHD has invested in the past couple of years in some mini sweepers. Very small sweepers that cost 160 grand a piece just for sweeping sidewalks.
I'm talking about where people like walk in it's like cement on the sides, and these wouldn't be like what a street sweeper could do.
The reality is though, that if we tried to remove all of that, you have an extra $100 million for the equipment and the manpower to do all of that. And that's the challenge. And that's always going to be a challenge. every year, like clockwork, when the first snow hits, we have people come in and say, and complain about the fact that they can't get to this bus stop or they can't get down this section of sidewalk. And you know what I say to them? I say, do you have neighbors? Get together with your shovels. I know it doesn't make us. No, I'm not
Streets lined with businesses, et cetera.
Sure.
You know, I mean, I don't know. It just seems if you're spending all of this time and money to make it safe for bicycles and riders, it sounds like it's only safe a portion of the year.
Well, and the reality is, during snow events, how many bicyclists are actually out on the roads? Not that many. That's part of the issue with trying to make this area really, really great for bicyclists, is that we have winter, we have snow. California, another matter. All kinds of cities there that don't get any snow at all. Sure, bicycling year round is great. Around here, there are some diehard cyclists that go in the snow. Most do not. And so, you know, we have to look at that and say, hey, we've just got to come together as a community. When you have those situations, which fortunately are rare. I mean, I was here for Snowmageddon, so I know what it was like shoveling that concrete that sat on my sidewalk, right? That's just, we're all in the same boat. And if we paid for the infrastructure and the manpower to take care of all of those issues, we would go bankrupt. You know, it's just a matter of balancing needs. Sorry, there was some questions over here. Yes.
For people who can't make the meeting, they can call in by video, right?
Oh, right. Yes. All of our commission meetings are online, so you can join via Zoom. If you can't come to the ACHD headquarters for our meetings, you can join via Zoom and you can comment. We can bring you up and you can give comments there remotely. Yes.
We live in East Boise.
Okay.
And Warm Springs Avenue around the mesa and everything, that's not safe at all for bicyclists, but they are there constantly, you know, and I've seen so many close accidents. We've had a couple motorcyclists die right there. Is there a way that they could say, hey, just use the green belt while you go around the hill here? I had a young girl the other day, she must have been 7 years old on her bike ride through there, you know, and she was nervous as a cat, just shaking like a leaf. And I'm just going, the green belt is right there.
Well, let me say two things about that. Number one, Warm Springs is in transition. It used to be a major arterial going through there, but now with changes, it's been demoted to a collector street because alternatives have been built that are higher speed and so on. And so you've got kind of the original configuration of the road is like you say, it was made for vehicles and it wasn't primarily made for bicyclists. So that's in transition right now, and changes are being made and will continue to be made that make that a lower speed, lower stress network. At the same time, we are also in our current design, our design criteria are to build multi-use pathways that are separate from the roadway for bicyclists and pedestrians. And those are these on-street bike lanes, I can understand concern about using them. I wouldn't want my kids using the on-street bike lanes, riding right next to traffic.
There's no bike lane. I mean, the shoulder's this wide, and you have hillside with rocks that are coming down.
Right. And so what we've got is there's a bikeways map that shows all these options for people that they ought to refer to. And it's going to take time, but over time, Warm Springs is going to get rebuilt and redesigned in various places to be more friendly that way. At the moment it's not, it's just a matter of priority until that gets there. Some intersections have been improved, other areas have been built, you know, that make it lower speed and make it lower stress, but there are always going to be challenges like that.
It's the width that's a problem.
Right.
Because you got the trucks and the boats and the campers heading out Highway 21. Yeah. So it's not the speed, it's the width.
Right. Yeah, but it doesn't take a high speed between a bicycle and a pedestrian to be,
no, that's what I'm saying.
To be a bad business. All right, any other questions? I've run over my time, so thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it very much.
So we did record this, so if the audio comes out right, we'll send it out to everybody, but I'll also be sending out the slide deck.
Oh, yeah.
Our last 15-minute meeting will be like this second week of December, so watch out for that. But thanks for coming.
So Scott, is it Sunday? is it a signage issue? Like, is it not clear?
It's not signage.
Clear to the bicycles, it's not, oh, I'm sorry. The green belt runs parallel there, right? So is it a signage issue?